We met when we were 15, two girls who should never have been as close as we were. I was the quiet one, the type who liked books more than parties, the girl who always sat near the window with earphones tucked in and a notebook full of poems no one ever read. Amelia was my opposite in every way. She was bold, fearless, and impossible to ignore. She was the kind of girl who made teachers sigh in frustration and made entire rooms light up with her laugh. She had this energy about her, like life was a game she was determined to win, and somehow, she decided I would be her teammate. It started with little things, her pulling me into conversations, insisting I sit with her at lunch, borrowing my pens without asking. Before I knew it, she wasn't just the girl in my class, she was my person. We spent weekends tangled in blankets during sleepovers, watching movies until sunrise. We passed notes in class filled with inside jokes no one else would understand. She'd climb through my bedroom window at midnight just to tell me about something funny that happened earlier. People noticed, of course. "You two are like a couple," they'd say with teasing grins. We'd laugh, roll our eyes, and throw playful punches at each other, pretending it was ridiculous. But even then, their words would linger in the back of my mind. Why did it feel like there was truth to their jokes? Why did my chest flutter when she held my hand just a little too long, or when she'd rest her head on my shoulder and sigh like I was the safest place in the world? At the time, I didn't have words for it. I told myself best friends could be this close. Best friends could fall asleep curled into each other's arms without it meaning more. Best friends could look into each other's eyes and feel a spark of something unspoken. I convinced myself it was normal, that it was just what closeness looked like. But somewhere between growing up and growing into myself, I started noticing her differently. The way her shirt slipped off one shoulder, revealing soft, tan skin that I wanted so badly to touch. The way her lips curved when she smirked, or the sound of her laugh that warmed something inside me I didn't know existed. I wanted her. Not as a friend. Not as someone I'd just share secrets with. I wanted her in ways that terrified me. So I buried it. For years, I buried it. Because she was my best friend, and best friends weren't supposed to cross lines like that. It wasn't until much later, after countless nights of pretending, after confessions whispered over wine, after years of loving her silently, that the line we had drawn between us blurred. And once we crossed it, nothing would ever be the same. By the time we were in our 20s, our friendship had already survived high school heartbreaks, university chaos, and all the little storms life threw at us. People came and went, boyfriends, girlfriends, situationships, but somehow, we always returned to each other. Amelia liked to joke that we were endgame, though she always said it with a smirk, the kind that made me wonder if she meant more than she was letting on. We lived just a few blocks apart, which made it easy to slip back into old habits. Movie nights at her apartment, lazy mornings drinking coffee together, sharing clothes like it was second nature. She'd wander into my closet, pull out a sweater, and wear it like it already belonged to her. And maybe, in a way, she already belonged to me. But there were moments, God, there were so many, that tested the limits of our friendship. Like the night she came back from a date and flopped onto my bed with a dramatic sigh, complaining about how boring he was. She was wearing a tight black dress, her lipstick smudged, her hair wild from the wind. I tried to focus on her words, but my eyes betrayed me, lingering on the curve of her legs, the dip of her neckline. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to nod, to laugh, to act normal. Or the times when we'd get just a little too tipsy, and she'd lean into me, her lips close to my ear, whispering secrets with a warmth that made my skin shiver. Once, during a drunken game of truth or dare at a friend's party, someone dared us to kiss. We laughed, pretended it was no big deal, and pressed our lips together for the briefest second. To everyone else, it was harmless fun. To me, it was fireworks. To me, it was the taste of something I wanted more than anything. But every time, I reminded myself, she's your best friend. Don't ruin this. And yet, the tension was always there, simmering beneath the surface. When she curled up against me during movies, when her fingers brushed against mine and lingered, when her eyes met mine in the dark and held just a little too long. We never talked about it. We never admitted that something unspoken pulsed between us. It was easier to pretend, easier to bury it under layers of laughter, sarcasm, and denial. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time. Because you can only ignore that kind of pull for so long before it consumes you. And though I didn't know it then, the night we finally crossed that invisible line was already on the horizon, waiting for us, inevitable and unstoppable. It was a Friday night when everything started to change. Not in the obvious way, not yet, but in the small, subtle cracks that began to split through the silence we had carefully built around us. We were at Amelia's apartment, as usual. She had ordered pizza, poured us each a glass of wine, and queued up one of those terrible rom-coms she loved. The kind where the plot was predictable, the jokes cheesy, and the kiss at the end always inevitable. She adored them, I pretended to mock them, but secretly, I liked watching her reactions more than the movies themselves. That night, she was in shorts and an oversized shirt that slid down her shoulder. I tried not to stare, but my body betrayed me every time she shifted closer, every time her laugh echoed through the room. Halfway through the movie, she stretched out and rested her legs across my lap, her bare skin warm against me. It was innocent, casual, just something we had done countless times before. But that night, it felt different. That night, my pulse raced, my body tense with the effort to keep still. "Why do they always make it so dramatic?" she asked, rolling her eyes at the screen. "It's just a kiss. Doesn't have to be a big deal." I forced a laugh. "Easy for you to say." She tilted her head, studying me with that mischievous glint in her eyes. "What? Don't tell me you think kissing is this huge, life-changing thing." I shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Sometimes it can be." For a moment, she didn't reply. She just looked at me, her eyes lingering a second too long, as if searching for something beneath my words. Then she smirked and tossed a piece of popcorn at me, breaking the tension. But the look in her eyes stayed with me long after. Later that night, after the movie ended and the wine glasses were empty, we found ourselves sprawled on her couch in comfortable silence. The city lights spilled through the window, painting her face in a soft glow. She was staring at the ceiling, absent-mindedly twirling a strand of hair. "Do you ever think about us?" she asked suddenly. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "You know." She turned her head to look at me, her eyes half serious, half playful. "People always think we're more than friends. Do you ever wonder why?" I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body screaming. This was it, the moment I had avoided for years. But before I could form an answer, she laughed and brushed it off. "Forget it. I'm being stupid." She changed the subject, but my heart was still racing. Because for the first time, she had pulled at the thread of something we had both been too afraid to unravel. And I knew then, we couldn't keep pretending forever. After that night on her couch, something shifted between us. We didn't talk about her question again, but it lingered, heavy and electric, in everything we did. Every glance, every laugh, every casual touch carried a weight neither of us acknowledged out loud. A week later, Amelia invited me to a party at one of her coworkers' apartments. Normally, I dreaded those kinds of events, but she was persuasive, and truthfully, I would have followed her anywhere. The party was loud, music pulsing through the walls, bodies moving in every direction. I stuck close to her, as I always did, like she was my anchor in a sea I didn't belong in. She introduced me around, her hand resting casually at the small of my back. It was a protective gesture, but it sent shivers down my spine. The warmth of her touch was almost unbearable, yet I couldn't step away. Hours and drinks later, we found ourselves tucked into a quiet corner of the balcony, the city spread out beneath us like a glittering secret. Amelia was tipsy, her cheeks flushed, her laugh softer than usual. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and for a moment, the world fell away. "You know," she murmured, her words slurring just a little, "I don't think anyone will ever know me like you do." I swallowed, my throat dry. "That's because I've been stuck with you for years." She laughed, nudging me playfully, then went quiet. Her fingers brushed mine, tentative, almost nervous. I didn't move. I couldn't. Do you ever wonder, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the city noise, what it would be like, if we weren't just friends? My heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the line we had drawn, the one I had promised myself I'd never cross. But in that moment, with her so close, her breath warm against my neck, I wanted nothing more than to leap over it. Amelia, I started, but she cut me off. Her lips brushed against mine. Just barely, just a fleeting touch, soft and hesitant. It was over before I could even react, like she was testing the waters, afraid of what she'd done. We froze, both of us staring at each other with wide eyes. My mind screamed at me to say something, to laugh it off, to save us from what we'd just done. But my body betrayed me. I leaned in, closing the distance, pressing my lips to hers with all the years of longing I had buried. This time, she didn't pull away. The kiss was tentative, trembling with fear and desire all at once. My hands shook as they found her face, hers clutching at my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. It wasn't just a kiss, it was everything we had been denying, bursting free all at once. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, she whispered the words that made my world tilt. I don't think I can go back now. And neither could I. The night of the party, after that kiss, we didn't stay long. The moment our lips touched, the world around us blurred into irrelevance. I barely remember leaving, barely remember the taxi ride back to her apartment. What I do remember is the way Amelia's hand gripped mine like it was the only thing tethering her to earth. Her apartment was dark when we stumbled in, only the faint glow of the city leaking through the curtains. For a moment, we just stood there in the silence, the weight of what we'd done pressing down on us. I was terrified, of ruining us, of losing her, but the hunger in her eyes burned away every ounce of doubt. She moved first, stepping close, her breath warm against my lips. Tell me to stop, she whispered, her voice trembling but steady in its intent. I couldn't. I wouldn't. Instead, I kissed her, harder this time, with years of restrained longing flooding through me. She responded instantly, her hand sliding into my hair, pulling me closer. The taste of her, the softness of her mouth, the way her body fit against mine, it was overwhelming, intoxicating, everything I had dreamed of and more. We stumbled toward her bedroom, laughing breathlessly between kisses, our hands roaming as if we couldn't get close enough. Clothes fell away in a blur, each discarded piece a boundary crossed, a layer of fear stripped away. When she pressed me down onto her bed, my heart nearly stopped. This was Amelia, my best friend, my other half, and yet, she felt entirely new in this moment, like I was discovering her for the first time. Her touch was both familiar and foreign, gentle yet desperate. She knew me better than anyone, but now, she was learning me in a different way, every gasp, every shiver, every whispered plea. My body responded to her as if it had been waiting all these years for this exact moment. Between kisses, between touches, we laughed nervously, as if trying to hide just how monumental this was. But then her lips found the curve of my neck, her hands traced paths down my skin, and there was no room left for laughter, only raw, aching need. It wasn't perfect. We fumbled, we hesitated, we broke into giggles when one of us bumped an elbow or lost balance. But beneath it all was something deeper, something fierce and tender. Love. Real, undeniable love that had been there all along, finally spilling over. When it was over, we lay tangled in the sheets, our breath still uneven, our bodies still humming. Amelia turned to me, her hair messy, her lips swollen, her eyes softer than I had ever seen them. So, she whispered, her voice cracking slightly, does this mean we've officially ruined the whole best friends thing? I laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Or maybe we've finally figured out what we were supposed to be all along. She smiled then, the kind of smile that made me certain of one thing, there was no going back. The morning after was softer than I expected. I woke to sunlight spilling through the curtains, warm against my skin. For a disoriented moment, I didn't know where I was. Then I felt the weight of an arm draped across my waist, the steady rhythm of her breathing against the back of my neck, and it all came rushing back. Amelia. Last night. Us. My chest tightened as reality settled in. We had crossed the line, shattered it, really, and now we were here, tangled together in the wreckage of everything we thought we knew. Fear should have been the first thing I felt, but instead, it was peace. A deep, bone-deep peace that made me want to stay in that bed forever. I shifted slightly, turning to face her. She was still asleep, her hair falling messily across her cheek, her lips parted just enough to make her look achingly vulnerable. I had seen her 1,000 different ways, wild and loud, sad and quiet, drunk and giggling, but never like this. Never so unguarded, so tender. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, my fingers lingering against her skin. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open, and when she saw me, she smiled sleepily. "Morning," she murmured, her voice husky from sleep. "Morning," I whispered back, my throat tight. For a moment, neither of us said anything more. We just looked at each other, the silence filled with unspoken questions. Was this real? Did it mean what I thought it did? Were we brave enough to say it? Finally, Amelia broke the silence. "So, do we talk about it? Or just pretend it was, you know?" I felt my stomach drop. "Just pretend?" I asked softly. She bit her lip, hesitating. "No. God, no. I don't want to pretend. She sighed, burying her face in the pillow for a second before looking back at me. "I'm scared. What if we mess this up? What if I lose you?" Her words cracked something open in me. Because that was my fear too, that by wanting more, I'd destroy the one person I couldn't live without. "You're not going to lose me," I whispered, reaching for her hand. "I've been yours for a long time, Amelia. Last night just made it real." Her eyes softened, and for the first time I saw relief wash over her. She leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to my lips, different from last night, slower, steadier, filled not with heat but with certainty. When she pulled back, she smiled. "Okay. Then maybe we didn't ruin anything. Maybe we just, finally stopped lying to ourselves." I laughed quietly, resting my forehead against hers. "Yeah. That sounds about right." And just like that, the morning light didn't feel heavy with fear anymore. It felt like a beginning. In the weeks that followed, life looked the same on the surface, but underneath everything had changed. We were still best friends to the outside world, laughing too loudly at inside jokes, stealing food off each other's plates, crashing on each other's couches like always. But behind closed doors, there was a new electricity, a secret current humming between us that neither of us could hide from anymore. It started small. A brush of her hand against mine that lingered just a second too long. A kiss goodnight at the door of my apartment, soft and quick, that left me breathless. The way her eyes darkened when we were alone, like she was seeing me for the first time all over again. But the more we gave into it, the harder it became to pretend. At dinner with friends, I'd feel her knee brush mine under the table, and it would take everything in me not to grab her hand. When she leaned close to whisper something in my ear, her lips grazing my skin, my entire body burned with the memory of her mouth on mine. One night, after a long day, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was in sweatpants and an old hoodie, hair tied messily on top of her head. No makeup, no pretense, just Amelia. She collapsed onto my couch with a dramatic groan. "Long day?" I teased, handing her a glass of water. "The longest." She patted the cushion beside her, and I sat down, already feeling her warmth radiate toward me. She rested her head on my shoulder, sighing. "You're my favorite part of the day, you know that?" My heart skipped. I turned to look at her, but she kept her eyes closed, as if she hadn't realized what she said out loud. I kissed her. Gently at first, just a brush of lips, but it deepened quickly, urgency replacing hesitation. Her hand slid under my shirt, her touch sending sparks through me. Before long, we were tangled together, the couch forgotten, moving toward my bedroom with a hunger that felt unstoppable. Afterward, as we lay tangled in sheets again, Amelia laughed softly. "We're really bad at being just friends, aren't we?" I smiled, pressing a kiss to her bare shoulder. Maybe we were never supposed to be just friends. The room went quiet for a moment, the weight of my words sinking in. I waited for her to panic, to pull away, to retreat behind a joke the way she always did when things got too real. But instead, she tightened her arms around me, burying her face in my neck. "You might be right," she whispered. "And honestly? I don't even care anymore." Her words were like an anchor, steadying the chaos inside me. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe it. We weren't breaking something sacred by loving each other. We were finally giving it the chance it always deserved. It didn't take long for people to notice something was different. Our friends teased us the same way they always had, but now their jokes carried sharper edges. They'd watch the way Amelia's hand lingered at my waist, the way our eyes found each other in crowded rooms, the way we seemed to exist in our own little world. And maybe they had always seen it, maybe we had been the only ones in denial. One evening, we went out with a group to celebrate a friend's birthday. The restaurant was noisy, the table crowded with laughter and chatter, but all I could feel was Amelia's hand brushing mine under the table, fingers curling around mine in a quiet claim. It was subtle, hidden, but the warmth of it spread through me like fire. When we left, the cool night air wrapped around us. Amelia slipped her hand into mine openly this time, not caring who saw. My breath caught, but I didn't pull away. For the first time, I realized I didn't want to hide. As we walked home, she glanced at me with a half-smile. "Do you think they know?" I laughed softly. "They've always known." Her smile widened, but then she grew serious, her eyes searching mine. "Are you okay with this? With us? With people knowing?" I stopped walking, pulling her closer. "Amelia, I've wanted this for years. I don't care who knows anymore." Her expression softened, and she kissed me right there on the sidewalk, under the glow of the streetlights. It wasn't hurried or secretive, it was steady, certain, ours. From that night on, we stopped pretending. We stopped calling it just friendship and let it be what it had always been, love. Messy, beautiful, terrifying love. Of course, it wasn't always easy. There were awkward moments, questions from friends and family, the adjustment of reshaping what we had always been. Sometimes, fear would creep in, fear of losing what we had built if things went wrong. But every time, Amelia would take my hand, look at me with those fierce, unwavering eyes, and remind me that we had already made it through everything else together. We weren't fragile. We were unshakable. One night, curled up in bed, she whispered against my skin, "You know, I used to wonder why I never felt satisfied with anyone else. Now I know. It was always you." Tears burned my eyes as I kissed her hair. "It was always you too." And in that moment, everything clicked into place. We hadn't ruined our friendship. We hadn't broken something precious. We had grown into it, allowed it to evolve into what it was always meant to be. We were best friends. We were soulmates. We were lovers. And the truth was simple, we had never crossed a line. There was never a line at all, only a path, winding and patient, that had always been leading us right here. Together.